Landlords, are you aware of the penalties for not complying with deposit regulations? I have seen so many landlords fall foul of this crucial piece of legislation. Don't be one of them. Deposit registration has been a crucial requirement in the private renters sector since April 6, 2007. This legislation was introduced to prevent landlords from unlawfully withholding tenants' money. If you stick around to the very end of this video, I even have a special free gift to share with you. When this law was first enacted, landlords were required to register a tenant's deposit with a government-approved scheme within 14 days of receipt. Along with registration, landlords had to provide tenants with what's known as prescribed information. This information informs tenants of where their deposit is held, the amount, and how they can retrieve it at the end of their tenancy. In 2012, the rules were updated. Now, landlords have 30 days to register the deposit with a government-approved scheme. Currently, there are 3 such schemes: the Tenancy Deposit Scheme, known as the TDS, the Deposit Protection Scheme, also known as DPS, and MyDeposits. Each of these schemes offers 2 types of options: an insured scheme and a custodial scheme. In an insured scheme, the landlord registers the deposit with the scheme but keeps the money in their own bank account throughout the tenancy. In a custodial scheme, the landlord registers the deposit and transfers the money to the scheme, which holds it until the tenancy ends. All of these schemes also offer an adjudication service for resolving disputes over the deposit at the end of tenancy. Landlords, when making a claim from the tenant's deposit, remember that the scheme will treat the deposit as the tenant's money unless you can prove otherwise. To support your claim, it is essential to have an inventory detailing the condition of the property at the start of tenancy and a checkout report at the end. Without these, it's difficult to prove any damages or issues occurred during the tenancy. Failure to comply with the 30-day registration deadline is serious. Once the deadline passes, the issue cannot be corrected and the consequences can be severe. So, what exactly are the requirements for deposit registration? First, you must register the deposit with one of the approved schemes within 30 days of receiving it. Note that this 30-day period starts when you receive the deposit, not from when the tenancy begins. You must also provide the tenant with the prescribed information within the same 30-day time frame. This includes signing the required documents, providing the tenant with a deposit certificate, if applicable, and also any other relevant documents from the scheme. It's also crucial to know who paid the deposit. If someone other than the tenant, like a parent, pays a deposit, they must be treated as a relevant person. This means their details must be included in the deposit registration, and they must also receive all of the relevant documents as well. If you find this information helpful, please subscribe to our channel for more videos on compliance and legislation in the private rented sector. Now, let's discuss the penalties for failing to comply with deposit regulations. If you don't register a tenant's deposit within the 30-day window and provide the necessary information, the tenant can take legal action against you. A judge may award the tenant up to 3 times the deposit amount as a penalty. Even more critical, you could lose the right to regain possession of your property. If the deposit isn't registered properly, serving a Section 21 notice could become invalid, potentially leading to your case being thrown out of court. There have been cases where landlords, despite having legitimate claims, lost because of failure to comply with deposit regulations. For example, a tenant could counterclaim during a Section 8 eviction process, which could reduce the arrears and invalidate the eviction. This can result in significant financial and time losses for the landlord. Remember, this is a time-sensitive matter. You can't go back and fix it once the deadline has passed. So make sure you're getting the deposit registration right. One last point on deposits. As of June 1st, 2019, deposits are capped at 5 weeks' rent. Be sure to calculate this correctly to avoid any issues. Landlords, don't fall foul of these regulations. Stay compliant and protect yourself. If you found this video useful, I host quarterly webinars where we cover various pieces of legislation in the private rented sector in more detail. You can register for the next session by clicking the link in the description. I hope to see you there. To continue learning, check out our playlist on compliance in the private rented sector.